Her mother keeps a box of postcards Ania once sent from short trips around Poland, each one filled with careful words, never generic. She is present in every detail, every line she writes, but her story does not exist in isolation. The people around her become part of this narrative, shaping the days before and after that June night. There is Pyotr, her longtime partner. Together for several years, they share an apartment not far from the city center. Friends say he is quieter than Ania, more reserved but visibly softened in her presence. He works in and often from home, his hours stretching late into the night. Their relationship, like many, is layered, filled with warmth, routines, and unconfirmed occasional strains. Her closest friends form another circle. Marta, a colleague from the studio, describes Ania as the one who always offered encouragement when deadlines pressed too hard. Tomas, a friend from university, remembers her determination during late-night study sessions, her handwriting neat even at 3 in the morning. These are the voices that bring her back to life, piece by piece. Cut to B-roll, city streets, cafe tables, studio sketches on desk. On the investigative side, key figures step into focus. Detective Marek Nowak, seasoned, meticulous, carrying the reputation of a man who notices details others miss. His partner, Detective Elżbieta Kowalska, younger, sharp, known for her persistence. Together they will comb through fragments of Ania's final days, searching for patterns in the noise. There are neighbors, too. A retired teacher living across the hall who often heard the rhythms of Ania's life, the shuffle of footsteps, the faint hum of music through thin walls. Another tenant, a student, occasionally borrowed sugar or asked for help carrying packages. Their impressions are ordinary human, and soon they will become witnesses to something they never expected. And then come the early suspects, individuals connected to Ania by circumstance, proximity, or history. Each one is introduced with the same care, without conclusion. Pyotr naturally becomes central, as partners often do in such investigations. He is cooperative, present during questioning, his demeanor described by some as composed, by others as distant. Contradiction, a former classmate, Jakub, appears briefly in records. They had reconnected months earlier over coffee, exchanging updates about work and life. Their contact is limited, but investigators note it all the same. Another name emerges, Katarzyna, a colleague at the design studio. She and Ania occasionally disagreed over projects, though coworkers recall that their disputes were professional, not personal. Still, in the careful process of elimination, nothing is overlooked. Music builds, steady and tense. Each introduction adds a thread to the tapestry. Ordinary people, ordinary routines. And yet within these details, investigators will search for meaning, for the fracture that led to tragedy. But for now, Ania remains the center. A young woman whose life, once so ordinary, has been cut short in a way that leaves silence where there should be laughter, sketches left unfinished, and questions without answers. And as the hours after her death begin to unfold, the first cracks in the surface of her story will appear. Signs that the discovery of her body is only the beginning of something far more unsettling. It begins with a call. A neighbor, alarmed by muffled cries and the heavy thud of movement behind thin walls, presses trembling fingers to a keypad. The voice that answers on the other end of the emergency line is calm, trained, but the caller's words stumble and fracture. A name, an address. The sound of panic bleeding through. 911 audio. Distorted, urgent tones. The dispatcher repeats the details. Units are sent. Within minutes, sirens rise in the distance, weaving through Krakow's narrow street. Blue lights dance against the rain-slicked pavement, reflecting in puddles, painting the facades of aging brick apartments. All SFX. Siren fading, car doors slamming. Paramedics are first through the door. Their steps echo up the stairwell, boots hitting concrete. The air inside the apartment is heavy, stagnant. A metallic tang hangs sharp in the throat, impossible to ignore. One medic kneels, latex gloves snapping as hands search for life where life seems to have already slipped away. Another prepares equipment, defibrillator pads, vials, syringes, each sound stark in the silence. For a moment, the only rhythm is the compressions, the thud of palm against chest. Numbers called out in clipped Polish. Time is everything. Time is slipping. Then the police arrive. Two officers push through the gathering crowd in the hallway. Neighbors whisper, crossing themselves, clutching robes tight. One woman shakes her head, muttering prayers under her breath. Another insists she heard shouting earlier, but her words stumble uncertain. Roll. Police tape stretching across stairwell, camera pans to flashing lights outside inside. The first observations are recorded. A young woman lies still, her body partially obscured by overturned furniture. The blinds are half drawn, allowing narrow shafts of streetlight to stripe the room. A chair is knocked sideways. Papers scatter across the floor, marked by faint smudges. Red flag the window, though closed, is unlatched. Detectives arrive soon after. Marek Nowak surveys the scene with the practiced stillness of someone who has done this many times, yet never grows numb. His partner Elżbieta Kowalska notes the smallest details. The position of the body, the placement of objects, the faint scent of something unfamiliar mixed with iron. They exchange glances, then words. Low, precise, meant for recorders more than each other. Suffix, camera shutter clicking, faint radio chatter, initial evidence begins to take shape. Photographs capture angles from every corner. Measurements are marked with chalk and ruler. Bags rustle as gloves collect small fragments. Fibers, paper, personal items, nothing is too trivial. Outside, officers canvass neighbors. Some describe a sudden silence. Others claim they heard raised voices earlier in the evening. Contradiction, a few admit they noticed nothing at all until the flashing lights arrived. Each statement is logged, though many do not align. Back inside, an officer notes the clock on the wall. The hands are frozen, batteries drained, but the time it marks does not match the estimated window of death. Red flag, another detail, filed carefully away for later. Cut to B-roll. Empty hallway, door ajar, light flickering overhead. The medics, after long minutes of effort, step back. Their equipment lies scattered, electrodes still sticky with gel. Their silence is confirmation enough. The body is covered with a thin sheet, the outline faint, but final beneath. Ooh! Detectives linger, they circle the room, each step deliberate. Marek studies the window latch again, his brow tight. Elżbieta crouches near the papers, fingers hovering inches above, careful not to touch. Outside, the city hums on. Cars pass. Laughter echoes from a bar 2 streets away. Life continues, unaware of the scene unfolding in this single apartment. But here, in this still, airless room, questions multiply. How did it happen? Who was here? Why does the evidence refuse to align neatly? The answers do not lie in plain sight. They will have to be uncovered, piece by piece. And with the discovery secured, the scene logged and sealed, the work now shifts. The deeper investigation begins. June 14th, 2010. The apartment is sealed. Yellow tape stretches across the doorway, fluttering in the draft of the stairwell. Inside, detectives Marek Nowak and Elżbieta Kowalska begin the slow, methodical process of turning a chaotic scene into evidence. Every object is photographed. Every position is measured. Nothing is assumed. The first hours are about preservation. The blinds remain half closed, the floor scattered with papers, a chair tipped over. A clock on the wall reads a time that doesn't fit the suspected window of death. Red flag, Marek notes it carefully, his voice low but clear for the recording. Day 1 ends with the body transferred to the coroner's office. The autopsy begins the following morning. Cold metal tray rolling the examiner documents faint bruises, shallow abrasions, and a level of blood loss consistent with sharp force injury. Toxicology is ordered, though results will take days. Unconfirmed traces of sedatives are suspected, but not yet verified. Meanwhile, detectives fan out, phone records are pulled, surveillance requests are filed, witness statements are compared line by line. June 15, officers re-interview the neighbor who made the emergency call. She insists she heard muffled cries before silence. Another resident recalls hearing voices, possibly male, though she admits she cannot be certain. Contradiction cut to B-roll. Tenants' doors, dimly lit stairwell suspects surface quickly. Piotr, the partner, present in her life daily. Cooperative in questioning, but his affect is noted as restrained. Possible motive stress in the relationship is suggested by a colleague of Ania's, though others deny any tension. Unresolved Jakub, the former classmate, reconnected months earlier. Phone records confirm brief contact in the days before her death. Investigators pursue the lead, but surveillance shows him in another city the night of the crime. He remains on the list but drifts downward as evidence clears him. The colleague, Gaina, the colleague. Disagreements over work projects are documented. Coworkers describe friction but nothing that spilled beyond the studio. No evidence ties her to the scene, yet she too is interviewed extensively. Then the first red herring appears, the unlatched window. At first, it suggests forced entry. Perhaps someone slipped inside unnoticed. Investigators bring in fingerprint powder, UV light, careful swabs. But prints belong only to Ania and Pyotr. No sign of tampering. No smudge of mud or scuff on the sill. What looked like intrusion becomes coincidence. Red herring another misdirection comes from a wallet found tucked under the couch. At first, officers wonder if robbery is involved. Yet nothing else is missing. The wallet still holds cash, ID, cards untouched. An anomaly, but not a lead. Red herring reveal. Surveillance footage June 17. CCTV from a tram stop near the apartment surfaces. A blurred figure appears around the estimated time of death. Tall, hooded, walking quickly. Initial speculation suggests a stranger, but frame analysis later shows the timestamp doesn't align. The footage was recorded hours earlier. Another lead collapses. Public pressure builds. Local newspapers report whispers of a prowler. Detectives face criticism for not producing answers. Murek and Elzbieta keep their focus, but the weight of expectation presses. Then the phone records. Keyboard typing Ania's mobile, recovered from the apartment, shows a series of deleted messages. Forensic recovery specialists managed to restore fragments. Among them, a final exchange late on June 14. The words are terse, urgent, unfinished. One message sent, no reply received. No reply received. Red flag June 18. Toxicology results return. They show low traces of sedative compounds. Unconfirmed, the dosage is debated. Whether accidental or deliberate remains unclear. But it complicates the timeline. Could she have been incapacitated before the attack? Unresolved, the investigation circles back to Pyotr. His statements about timing conflict with phone data. He claims to have been out for groceries, yet receipts show purchases earlier in the day. Red flag, a gap of nearly 2 hours remains unexplained. Still, detectives resist leaping ahead. They recheck timelines, they pull bank records. They return to neighbors again, testing memory against fact. Each pass through the evidence sharpens the picture. And then the breakthrough. CCTV, this time from a corner store near the apartment, finally aligns. Grainy, distorted, timestamp intact. It shows a figure entering the building minutes before the emergency call. The stride is familiar, the clothing identifiable. The image is blurred but undeniable enough to shift the course of the case. Music rises, steady crescendo, the false trails are fading. The contradictions are sharpening. And now detectives hold the one piece that changes everything, a single thread pointing directly to the truth. The investigation has found its focus. The question is no longer if, it is who, and that answer is about to come to light. The turning point comes with the surveillance footage. The grainy clip from the corner store is enough to secure a warrant. Detectives move quickly. In the early morning hours, officers arrive at the apartment where Pyotr has been staying with relatives. He does not resist. He does not resist. Handcuffs click shut. Neighbors wake to flashing blue lights and the low hum of engines idling in the street. SFX. Police radio chatter, muffled footsteps inside the station. Pyotr maintains composure at first. His answers are calm, deliberate. But as the evidence piles forward, the mismatched timeline, the receipts, the phone records, and now the video, his story begins to shift. Investigators press hour after hour. Eventually, words falter. A partial admission is made. Not full, not clear, but enough to tighten the frame. Unconfirmed accounts differ on whether this moment constituted a true confession or simply a series of contradictions too stark to ignore. The case moves to trial. The courtroom is solemn, its wooden benches filled with family, press, and onlookers. The air carries a weight that is both legal and human. Courtroom footage. Wide shot of proceedings, the prosecution presents its case with methodical precision. Photographs of the apartment. Testimony from the medical examiner. Experts explaining toxicology results, the traces of sedatives, and their possible role in weakening Ania before the attack. Phone analysts walk the jury through the deleted messages and the gaps in communication. And finally, the surveillance footage, blurry but unmistakable, projected larger than life on a courtroom screen. The defense counters with challenges. They argue the footage is inconclusive. They raise doubts about toxicology, pointing to the possibility of false positives. They question whether investigators overlooked other suspects, citing early mentions of Jakub and Katarzyna. They call attention to procedural missteps in the handling of evidence. Witnesses testify. A neighbor recalls the muffled cries. A friend describes Ania's character, her reliability, her voice. family members holding back tears tell stories of her life, her kindness, the absence her death has left. Each word adds to the weight already pressing on the room. Gavel. Courtroom murmurs. The climax of testimony comes when Detectives Marek and Elsbaeta take the stand. Their narrative is calm, steady, lined with careful detail. They explain how each red herring fell away, how each contradiction sharpened the picture. Their words reinforce the prosecution's narrative that the evidence converges, pointing in a single direction. Deliberations take hours, not days. The jury returns. The courtroom rises. The foreperson reads the verdict aloud, guilty of murder. Music swells, then cuts to silent. Sentencing follows weeks later. The judge delivers a measured speech, weighing the crime, the evidence, the impact. The sentence is long, years counted in decades, reflecting both the gravity of the act and the loss endured. Appeals are filed, arguments of procedure raised, but each is dismissed. The verdict stands. Montage. Family photos fading into courtroom sketches for Ania's family. There is no victory, only the heavy certainty of justice. Her sister speaks quietly to reporters afterward, describing the ache that lingers, the conversations she still wishes she could have. Her parents walk from the courthouse in silence, their grief visible in every step. For Piotr's family, the aftermath is different but also devastating. A son, a brother, now marked by conviction, leaving behind questions of how much they missed or whether there was anything they could have done. In Krakow, the community reels. Neighbors in the apartment block speak of unease, of checking locks twice, of walking hallways with new caution. At the design studio, colleagues keep Ania's desk clear, a small candle often lit beside it. Candlelight vigil footage the case leaves behind echoes larger than one tragedy. Questions of trust within relationships. Questions of how violence hides in ordinary spaces, undetected until it erupts. Questions about the small details, the latch on a window, the time on a clock, that can carry immense weight in the pursuit of truth. What does justice mean when it can never restore what was lost? And how do we, as a society, recognize danger before it crosses the threshold?